Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste viewers, welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. Today we are going to straight away dive into a very important topic. Is world peace an illusion? And that's an important topic because there is a conflict, war happening all over the world or some part of the world for one reason or the other. I am a good friend of Mr. Aditya Satsangi, whom some of you know. He's author of 8 books on ancient history, philosophy, and culture. He is the inventor of the word Sathology, and which completely debunks the concept of mythology that the world thinks or knows about. Whatever one doesn't agree, you term it as mythology. And you are a historian, you are a man from technology, and you have done a human's work in that regard. Writing 8 books, my goodness, I wish I could do that.
9.
9. Okay, now is the 9th one coming up. So, all right. So, the speed with which you write. So, let's talk about this world peace and illusion. The reason being that your book that you shared with me, Gold, Glory, and God, it's a fabulous book to all the viewers. Gold, Glory, and God, in which you specifically talk about the how this particular entire concept was the curse on the natives. But we will go into that little later. But what is important here to figure out that these are the 3 reasons, gold, glory, and God, for which human beings have been at war with each other for times immemorial.
That's right.
For these very 3 reasons. So in a way that you are talking about that how this entire thought was cursed on the natives because the war was waged against someone and the conquerors seeking glory or the spread of religion and faith. So it is an endemic problem. And as you know now, and as the viewers know, I am a Republican Party candidate for New York State Assembly. So there is always a search in me to learn. I mean, what is going on? We all talk about peace. We all talk about rule of law. But what exactly drives that entire motive is something which led me to read your book. It's a very serious book. It's not a joke because the way you have demonstrated historical evidence in a manner that betrays us as human beings, that humans are failing each other. So share your thoughts on this inspiration to write the book. And also, I will go into certain aspects. 1 hour is never enough to talk about the whole topic. But there are a few thoughts which I have in mind, which I will definitely want to ask and learn from you about this one. Tell us about the inspiration for the book and how did you get into doing this? And this is a fabulous book. I will urge all, this is not a book promotion show, my dear friends, but I want to say there are times when we need to know and read some seminal work done, and this is one such work. The war always has a devastating impact. But this is not Shivji's Tanda Nritya. That is a totally different concept. So let's talk about it.
So, very good question and good opening lines, and thank you for the kind words, Vibhuti ji. And always, I really like the wisdom that you show in practice.
Thank you.
So, one of the things which inspired me was, so after I wrote my One Arrow, One Kill, which is based on Sri Ram's geographical tour, Ramayana, Global Spirit of Ramayana, the one thing I was thinking, the missing link. Most of the Indians, they talk about that what happened to their history. Now, till 15th century and 14th century, Tulsidas, like even though Islamic invasion was at peak during that time in India, it started declining in 17th century actually. So during 15th century, it was at peak, the invasion. Till that time, Indians were fighting very hard. But something happened in the 15th century which changed the world. And that was the poverty in Europe. Europe was very poor country, very poor nation. You'll be shocked to know that Lithuania, Latvia, and many of these countries were still speaking Sanskrit words during that time, just as late as 15th century. Not very recent. And even Syria, there are many parts of Syria were speaking Sanskrit till 15th or 16th century. People, one thing is that you can study, because I went to one Syrian historian at SDSU, and their restaurant names were Al Sham, and I started looking at the origin. So their idea about God was a bluish god, bluish skin god. That was as recent as 15th century, 16th century. So the story, the world has been the way this history has been told. It is very, like, I don't even have words to say that it has been a complete European nonsense which has been taught as world history. And now the scholarly consensus has stopped us from questioning it. Like, if I do not have the PhD from an American college, I cannot question an American professor, even though he might be a complete jerk. And then most of them are. Most of them means 80% are there, like that. Very arrogant people. So this book, when I was analyzing the 15th century, 13th century was famine in Europe. Europe was poverty stricken. 13th century. 14th century was poverty stricken, and the church was losing all the territories which they have gained as a Roman Empire. Vatican, I'm talking about. And the Vatican was fighting for control of the English Church of England, which was trying to be independent. And Russian Orthodoxy Church, which was north of Byzantine Empire, they were also trying to be independent. That time, the Pope of in Italy passed an edict, Gold, Glory, and God, 1493. And that's where the whole world was cursed, actually, by that edict. Christians won't admit it. Christians say we brought civilization. But what explains civilization when they were celebrating smallpox in South America? They celebrated smallpox in South America. They said the God's mercy has descended in the form of smallpox to curse the heathens or the natives over there. They celebrated in California. 21 missions in California killed more than 300,000 people, and made almost half a million as slaves. Till 1908, Native Americans were a majority in this country. In 1908, that scale turned, and that's where the democracy or Native Americans were given a right to vote. The frontier wars in the USA are the most ignominious, inglorious chapter of American history, where the Native Americans were killed just like a normal animal or a bull. Bisons or Native Americans. This is how they were killed. And there is no one to speak a story. And since everyone started searching for India to loot, and I'm an Indian, proud Hindu, and it was my responsibility to tell the story, to wash off my karma also, to tell the story from an Indian perspective to what happened to natives all over the world. It's the same story everywhere. It's all in the name of gold for church, glory for church, and God of church. That's the whole story. That's why I said the
If you
second part is,
continue, if you continue to speak like that, nobody will vote for me. So the point here is that for the viewers' attention, these are the thoughts of Mr. Aditya Satsangi, who has written the book. I may agree, I may not agree, but that's beside the point. But it is always good to learn things from history, because that history is the only thing we can't change. It has already happened. But we need to learn from history. What we are today is a function of many things that have happened in the past. But you talked about the European colonialism and imperialism, which is driven by search for economic welfare from elsewhere. And nothing describes better than Will Durant, who has written a seminal book on India. And I quote one of the things that you have said in your book, that it might have been supposed that the building of 30,000 miles of railways would have brought a measure of prosperity to India. But these railways were built not for India, but for England, not for the benefit of Hindu, but for the purposes of the British Army and British trade. This is Will Durant. It's not Vibhuti Jha. So the point which I'm trying to say here is that we have to get into a broader concept today. We learn a lot from history. You talk about the natives, describing them as pagans and things like that, by ridiculing people. Where do we go from here? Knowing what we know now, We know that between the first world war and second world war, they were not essentially authentic world wars. They were European conflicts in which many colonies were involved and millions of people lost their lives for no reason at all, no fault of theirs. So, where we are today in the 21st century, with the knowledge, wisdom, technology, and everything else, how do we address that issue? Because people are still fighting, we are still killing, we are still indulging in war, we are still trying to capture economic resources for the purpose of gold, glory, and God. How does the modern humanity address this issue?
If you look, go back the history I have mentioned, first of all, I'd like to correct myself, is that this book is written to show the alternative history to Americans and the Western people. And the second is, the real truth in history builds identity, creates healing, and creates a more justifiable society. So we cannot change the wrongs of the past, but by acting on correcting those feelings today, America can be more united.
Correct.
And if they do not address it, it's going to get more and more divided, and ultimately we'll see division of USA also, because it's a warning to us. The second part you just mentioned, yes, if you speak the truth, you'll definitely win the election, Vibhuti ji. So I must say that. And the because truth has power.
Yeah.
Because truth you have to speak only once. See, the thing is, now coming back to the second question, I have given solutions in this book how we can avoid it. So Native communities, Native American communities have to be strengthened by the European settlers. There are no true Americans in this country other than the natives of America. By the way, America is a Portuguese word. It's not connected to any native culture. And so we have a native caste and a native Portuguese. Both are, caste and America, both are Portuguese words. Colonization has not ended yet. It is still continuing. You see the sermons of the church, they keep on talking about sermonizing and keep converting. In fact, half of the people, when they meet me and they ask me straightforward, why don't you convert? And I said, why don't you convert to become a better human being? Now the point is, colonization has not started. Colonization is continuing till date. It's just that they are now trying to find newer ways of earning money, because church is all about earning money, nothing else. They don't give you spirituality, they don't give you salvation, nothing else, just about earning money. This historically I proved it. And they put on those fancy gowns and fancy dresses to do that. So the solutions I've given in this book are that, first of all, the entire textbooks, maybe my book can serve as a guide to change the narrative mentioned. Like, for example, against Hindus is so negatively written in American textbooks. 10th grade textbooks even today talks about Hindus as a tribe. They don't recognize, the moment they say Hinduism, that means they're making fun of Hindus, because they don't call Christianism, they don't call Islamism, they don't call Judaism. They call Judaism because both the Muslims and the Christians, they don't like Jews, and so they say Judaism. So the point is, if we start, if the solution is to become more spiritual and more centered on the native cultures, that's the only platform for peace. But the Abrahamism cults are not going to bring the peace, because they're not designed for peace. They're designed for political conquest. And that has to end.
That has to end. But another thing very important: life is a function of contrasts. Nature itself is not at peace with itself all the time. It's a very interesting thought. And we are having a conversation, and people, please ask questions, because that is important. You can ask the questions. Let's answer those questions. We would love to hear from you what you think about these topics. Particularly, like Rishi Srivastav says, Syria, Latvia is speaking Sanskrit words in 15th century. Wow. People didn't know that. There is so much we don't know. So one of the things is that we learn by reading things. So my question here is that we now know, that the desire to dominate others through means which are available to me is a common feeling amongst humans. Now we can't suddenly, nature also has its own way of dealing with situation. There is rain, there is a nor'easter, there is a desert, there is a sandstorm there is a tsunami, These things happen in nature. And as Professor Malthus were to say, nature, whenever earth will suffer, nature will have its own way of taking care of it. It's there all over our texts. Why is it that humans don't learn from it? Why do we forget the bleeding obvious? The important part here is that you can learn. You know nor'easter is happening every winter. You prepare for it. Why aren't we preparing for it in a better way? Which part of the human mind is the one which drives us crazy?
Actually, we are lazy, number one. Very lazy. So Bhagavatam says, Manda Sumanda Matyo Manda Bhagya Uparduta. We're very lazy. We don't like to ask tough questions or get tough answers. We like to stay in a comfort zone, and that's a disease of the West, where we all know West means Christian countries mostly. West doesn't mean the direction West. It must mean Christian countries. Most of them, they hide difficult questions because they have done untold violence. Untold violence. Even after the World War II, more than 8 million people worldwide have been killed by the Western bombings. We all know that, where it happened. But it all happened because of two, three countries. Same countries were the colonial masters. UK, France, Dutch, Portuguese. These are the same land, Spanish people. What they did in Philippines is a travesty of justice. They told an edict over there, and they complain about the human rights today. They told the Filipinos that either you convert or we kill you or you throw it out of the island, and that's how the Philippines became a Catholic country. Most of the Filipino Americans must be shocked to know that their ancestors were all Hindus before. Therefore, they look like us, they have the skin like us, and they talk like us, their feelings like us. They're a very successful community in the US. But this is their history. The point is, because India defeated the European invaders, straight fight. Martanda Verma was the first person. India is the only country which has defeated European fighters, European navies in a straight fight, and therefore India is not colonized till date. Even though Islamic invaders came and looted India and took it back to Middle East, the wealth, but they did not change through the systems and processes. They banned it, and therefore they were not able to do much damage on India. They tried their best, but the Europeans did it another way. They changed the very texts of India. They tried, but again, India's parampara saved it. Now, as an Indian American, I want to bring back the original culture of natives back in this country. Worshipping sun, worshipping nature, taking care of nature, and also add what they were missing from Vedas back in this country. This is how we contribute to this country. This is my unique contribution to USA. So far, many of my brothers, Indian American communities, they have contributed a lot through business and trade and being the CEOs of IT companies. But that is a contribution to the American corporations. But I want to contribute to the American state by reviving the Native American traditions, their ways of worship, and their ways of language, everything. World will know that they were all very similar to the natives of India, natives of South America, natives of Europe. All had the similar culture. They all worshipped sun. They all worshipped moon. They had respect for water. They had respect for land. And they were very good fighters also. That's why all the fighting machines in the US are named after them. Apaches, Tomcats. They're all native names.
It's so amazing to know. Thank you, Miniji, for your comment. When I get elected, we will. And it is not about Hindus alone. We are people. That's the beauty of life. Like as human beings, genome research has proved that we are the same, right? Whether with our blood, whether heart, mind, everything else. And that's what is
99.9, yeah, 99.1% of all human beings have the common genes.
common genes. So the question is religion the reason that we get divided? That's a
Exactly.
very important thought that keeps bothering me, because we know one thing for sure. For example, I went for a Vaishakhi celebration in Nassau County Hall, and there we were told that how Guru, established Sikhism, and how we learned about it. That I saw a tweet today where a Sikh gentleman in front of Golden Temple is sitting with a placard saying that Aurangzeb killed our gurus. Why are we naming things behind Aurangzeb? So what we find here, sadly enough, that in the religion, in the name of religion, there have been too many killings going on. And as you perhaps mentioned, the desire to colonize and economic resources, we are still continuing with our imperial and colonial practices, whether through this or that. How does humanity address that challenge?
In the
That's the
16th,
question which I have.
thank you. Very good question. Very thoughtful and very kind question. But the answer is going to be a little harsher than people to hear.
Mhm.
So the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita describes Asura. And Asura is a person who does Artha Sanchayan, or accumulating wealth at all costs without understanding the proper use of the wealth. So this is the exact 16th chapter of Gita gives a complete direction of what the Western world thinks about. Now coming to your question, the solution. You said religions. Now there are only three religions of the world, which is, we all know, Abrahamism faiths. Abrahamism, I call them Abrahamism cults, because all of them are mutually exclusive. They all have individual gods. Christian God is separate, Islamic God is separate, Judaism God is separate. But there is one Dharma which unites everyone. There's only one culture which says God is one, and that is Sanatan Dharma. The Vedic texts say Eko Vishwa Bhavanti, like there is only Eka Satyam, only one God. That is only said by the Vedic text. And so while the religions divide, Dharma unites. Religion is not Dharma, Dharma is not religion. Now that's the very strategy. What they have done is they have not recognized Vedas as an official text of Hindus in America. We don't need the recognition also, but the American Education Department must, if they're watching this video, must take into account that they are ignoring 1.4 to 1.6 billion people of the planet who believe in Veda. And also they're ignoring 60 million Americans, more Americans who believe in yoga and karma and dharma. So the point is, the word religion, which exists based on political recognition, it doesn't exist or based on spiritual value. So therefore the religions have always created wars because they are mutually exclusive. But Sanatan Dharma or Hindutva is one culture which unites everyone, and that, I think, the sooner America comes to that, the sooner America will have peace and the world will have peace. And Europeans also have to get off their high horse, leave their arrogance, and come down to basics. They to first say sorry that yes, our church was wrong. We, in the name of gold, glory, and God, we killed everybody. Everybody. 200 million Native Americans, North and South Americans killed. And I think many Americans, good-hearted Americans, they are actually beginning to like this book. Is very widely sold amongst Americans, and they say even though words that you have used are harsher, but they actually depict the true story, because that's exactly happened. So what I did was I took out the historical accounts as it is. I published them as it is, but then I researched on them what it actually meant for the local people. If the natives were so backward, how did they build such huge beautiful temples in Mexico? Till date, the major tourism revenue of Mexico, other than those drinking stations I call them in Cancun and other places, those are all owned by the drug lords. Other than them, the major tourism revenue of Mexico comes from the Native American Aztec sites. Till date. So they're still making money on the old culture, but living the new philosophy, which is very sad. And I think I really congratulate the new Mexican president. I may I may get a chance to meet him shortly. That that he has done a wonderful job in last 2 years. He has revived the native cultures back. And I also thank the California governor actually for even though many things I don't like about him, especially the taxes, that I must thank him, Gavin Newsom, that he is the only governor of the entire 50 states in USA who passed a law to protect Native American history. Nobody has done it.
Well, I'm not campaigning for Democrats, but then the point is, this is a TV show, and I welcome Democrats, Republicans, anyone to come and let's talk about peace. Let's talk about happiness. Let's talk about human welfare. Because at the deep end of our lives, we all want that. I mean, there is no way you can promote war You might use war as an instrument to achieve something. But even in Mahabharata and Ramayana, we know war is an essential instrument of life. If all dharmic pravritti has been used and nothing has resulted, war becomes a. The question here is again very important, is that how does the world come to a conclusion based on religion itself? I mean, people are after Hindu part. By the way, Dubai is going to have the Abrahamic Peace Center of Jews, Islam, and Christianity. And my first immediate thought was, why exclude us? Why call it Abrahamic Center for Peace? That's good, very good initiative. Let's compliment them on that. But why exclude us, 1.4 billion people who are Sanatanis? That's the point, which is very much that you said about religion and dharma, and I say it in my LinkedIn profile. God unites, religion divides. That's my thought process in there. So how does one reach out to other religious practitioners that we are all one and we need to work towards humanity's welfare? Yeah, there will be aberrations. There will be people who will act differently. We need to deal with that. How does one go about it?
Very good question. As far as UAE goes, organizing that conference, because they need it badly, because all three have been fighting from the time they started.
Right.
One is trying to reform, the other is trying to reform. We are the victims. Hindus are the victims, because the entire Malay Desh, Cambodia, from Cambodia to Afghanistan was a Hindu territory, and we have been attacked and dismembered. So we need to have another conference where we need to demand peace from them. Say, please leave us alone, because we are the ones who are being attacked even today. Like I just put a Facebook post that how US CIRF constantly works against India till date. It's a religious hatred. Same thing is starting. Now the world can unite and be peaceful when there is a respect and there is a mutual beginning of training themselves in a higher purposes of life. The biggest enemies that the human being has is lust, anger, greed, envy, and pride, and of which pride has been the worst form of atrocity, which is the background of, which is actually the reasoning behind why so many violence acts have happened. The European exceptionalism, now American exceptionalism, when they all know that they were not exceptional in any scenario, they borrowed right from Nikola Tesla, who discussed with Vivekananda, and he discussed all those battery, the science from Indian origin. So the world has to start giving credit to the old civilizations, and beg sorry and forgiveness for what they have done to natives. Because if there is no healing, there will be no peace. Because karma is very, very strong. Karma is a universal law of nature, it is a law of God. And if people do not believe in karma or do not be scared of karma, then I do not know whether they're normal or not. So, whatever they have done in the past is going to bite them very hard, because the nature records the incidences. So the best way to move forward is recognize the past, apologize, and make policies so that this doesn't recur again. I think that's going to ensure peace now. Otherwise, no.
That's a very powerful thing that never happens again. That's very important. Mistakes will always happen, wrong things will happen, but it's for humans as elevated life form, as I call it. I mean, humans is the elevated life form. In this elevated life form, if we do not apologize, then talking about peace doesn't make sense, because we will keep doing we will keep doing the things that have continued to hurt us. So that's what is important. Now, this also brings me back to, I think I read somewhere, is that in San Diego, apparently, about Armenian, you had some issue on in Orange County or somewhere, the Armenian genocide by the Turks became a big thing, one of the biggest genocides in the history of the world, followed only by the Kashmiri genocide that has happened there. And so how does this other genocide work? Why is it? Now, that's another question which I have in mind. It's a purely a learner's question. Why is it that the Christianity and Islam are perpetually at war with each other, despite emerging from the same Abrahamic belief system.
See, the first war between them happened in the ninth century. So in the ninth century, Rashidun Caliphate learned from the Christian, what do you call it, uh, the Crusades. The Crusades were launched by the Roman Empire against
Yeah.
Byzantine Empire, and the fight was at Turkey, where today the Constantinople or Istanbul is situated. And in that fight, the Muslims used Christian tactics to defeat Christians. They use the same tactics. The fight has not yet ended. It was last few years, I think last year, the new terrorist president of Turkey, I don't know what his name is, Erdogan. So that guy converted the old church into a mosque.
Yes.
Okay, now it is again reigniting the fire. Is again reignited. So they are at loggerheads with each other because one thinks that is superior to them. Like the Islamism followers, they feel that they are superior to Islam Christianism followers, and therefore, so that again the pride, I am better than you, and so both are fighting like that. So, but you will not see that there are fights between Hindus and Buddhists for a long time. They were there, but not to such an extent that they are going to wipe out each other completely. But the difference is the faiths based on Sanatan Dharma, they are they have the concept of soul, they have the concept of karma, they have the concept of the conscience or lajja. Lajja means that you feel ashamed of doing things. Now that lajja is completely absent in the Abrahamism cults. There is no lajja. There is no shame for what they have done in the past. They say they're proud. Even it is wrong, they're proud. So there is no clear concept of good and bad. And there is no concept of karma. So they're going to finish each other off one day. And they're going to continue till the end. And that's how there's a fight on the dome in Israel going on till date. And I mentioned that very accurately in this book, that this fight is created from 9th century, when the Quran was officially accepted as a book in Saudi Arabia. Not in the 6th century, not in the 7th century, 9th century. It's very recent faiths. Between 9th century, they came to India in 11th century or 12th century. And
Right.
then, and they were wiped out by 1857. So only 600 years. And that too, they were fighting for survival, 600 years. So Indians are told 1,000 years of Muslim slavery. That is totally not wrong. It's only 250 years total. Because 250 years they actually stayed. Otherwise, they didn't stay. They used to loot and go back, loot and go back. So these religions, organized religions based on Abrahamism, they have actually destroyed the natural or the freedom of thought of the people whom they were governing.
This is again very important part. Like the fight between the two leads to the destruction of the third, and nobody listens. So the innocent gets shot at. Then each one reaches out to the others who are not part of that to convert. So this leads to me to another thought process of asking and making an inquiry. I personally believe that the freedom of speech is not about you and I talking. The freedom of speech is a very vital piece of democratic process. Satyam Uvach
Guru
Priyam
Yap.
Satyameva Jayate. The truth will always win. These are part of our Sanatan practice. So the point here is very important, is that why does truth get trampled upon more often than not? So that's the important part. And I have said this to my friends, that if you believe Jesus is supreme, I'm very happy for you. If you believe Allah is supreme, I'm very happy for you. Leave me alone. And I sometimes, those Hindi speaking people, I have also mentioned the song by Raj Kapoor, Mujhe tumse kuch bhi na chahiye, mujhe mere haal pe chhod do. Let me find my own God. How does one address that part? Is it in our management tool work that we do with around companies? We always ask, do you want to do this? If you want to do this, then you have to commit to doing that. Once you commit to doing that, things happen. We have a whole white paper called commitment-based management. It's not anything else. It's commitment that makes things happen. The issue is is, are we insincere with our commitments to do things? That's the
So
important part.
two parts to your question actually. Number
Yes.
one, see, in Sanatan Dharma, we we carry out every of our all our actions in the name of our Guru and for Bhagwan. But we don't say it too many times. We do it everyone does their karma, not
Mhm.
to show off. But
Right.
in Abrahamism cults like Islamism and Christianism and Judaism,
Mhm.
they have been programmed for mental slavery by their books. So they have to speak about the God. Like if you go to the Iranian family, I have many Iranian friends, and I see complete lack of open-mindedness, complete lack. But they will just keep talking about their book, and they talk about their God in their name just to show me how good they are. And when I see their actions or karma outside
Mhm.
their home, they're exactly reverse of what they were talking in the house. Totally, whether it's a women or men or anyone else. So the point is the and I don't want to tell you many things here what I have seen in San Diego. I'm very closely connected to the local community here. Now the point is that we have to come out of this. See, till the time you keep saying my God is superior, my God is complete, and my God is best, everyone has a different opinion.
That's right.
Even in Sanatan Dharma, which is a very homogeneous group, still there are different opinions. So some people can go to Durga, some people go to Ganesh. It doesn't impose that you can stop. But the point in these people, they are so suppressed, they are so oppressed. And go to listen to any church and listen to the sermons, you look feel like you'll break your head against a wall and say, was this a spiritual sermon or what was it? there's no there is nothing like that in their culture. So when they come out, they only explode politically, nothing else. Like for example in the US, if you look at the political parties, and so the very striking that conservatism for them is obeying to the Bible, and liberalism for them is opposing the Bible. Gay marriage is a spiritual topic now. Now it has nothing to do with spirituality. It is a personal choice of freedom of individual or his mental swabhav. Swabhav, we call it the original nature that he had. These things are not considered important in Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma, your diet is not important. The only important thing is your karma, and you're following your duties for yourself, your family, your ancestors, your teachers, and your society. So that the duty concept has been replaced by the rights because of this Abrahamism literatures. So now everybody wants the right to worship their god in Abrahamism cult. So they want to focus on one cult they have from. That's what they're going to focus. That I have the right to worship that god, and nobody else. Everybody must do that to support me. And so, but they're not thinking support is a two-way street. If you support others, then they naturally support you. But they don't believe in that. They say you have to stop doing what you're doing. Let me continue what I'm doing because I'm right. It's a belief, make believe world built on dogmas. And that's why there is no peace. And there will never be peace because one side is always proving to be superior over others. Till the time you do not stop that, it's not going to end.
Will it ever stop?
No, it's not going to stop. It's going to increase. It's
Then
going to
how
be.
does one deal with that?
We have to come up with very commonsensical state enforcement. It's called danda. Arjun tells Yudhishthir, without unless there is a danda, there is no peace in the society. So we have to. The state has to step in and say that the state has to say we don't believe in any cults, any Abrahamism cults or religions. We don't believe in anything. And dharma, which is not a religion, dharma is a science that has to be adopted, that everyone is equal under the state and nobody is superior, nobody is inferior, and people should engage in spiritual practices. Then peace will start coming. Otherwise it's not going to come in. Yoga, meditation, and belief in karma, these are the three solutions to the world problems.
You refer to yoga. Yoga has been accepted in America, and also there are many, I have known about from Saudi Arabia. There are ladies who are yoga instructors. So the spread is happening, the understanding is happening, and there is bravery. Like for example, in Sanatan Dharma, whether you pray or not pray doesn't matter. What you do actually defines you, right? That is a karmic law. But in this particular part of the world, we are talking about you have to be X, Y, or Z to do something. So the important part here again comes back to the same process is I applaud. I applaud everybody. Uh, I applaud everybody who takes the freedom of speech and understanding to question something, because freedom of speech to inquire leads to change, leads to upgrade, leads to transformation. If the apple was falling on the ground, if the essential question was not asked, why, we would never have known about the theory of relativity and all that goes with that. If eureka has not had happened, we would not have known about the displacement theory, whatever. All these things are important. So for me, I applaud ex-Muslims because they have dared to be different. I applaud atheists because they are definitely different. I may be slandered for saying that I like atheists. I have no problem with them because as a Sanatani, as a Hindu practitioner, I have no problem with anyone. If you have found happiness in doing what you are doing, be happy the way you are, right? So long as we don't tell others what to do. But then that means my assumption that the world peace is an element of illusion is correct, because conflicts are essential part of our human activity and our mind. How does one reduce the element of conflict going forward? And I'm asking this question as an as a candidate for assembly election, because I know I'll be bombarded with questions that you are anti this or anti that. I'm not anti this or anti that. I'm only asking a question to know more. Where do we go from here?
See, truth is the biggest. Uh, Truth is the. We have to accept truth. What has happened, you have to accept the reality. And see, as a good businessman, and you have been in financial industry, we always work so numbers never lie. Numbers never lie. And
Statistics do.
statistics do. It's the way you interpret it. You
That's right.
can just change the assumptions, and
That's right.
assumptions, A, S, S, you and me. You know what the assumptions stand for. So yes, I mean interpretations lie. But the numbers never lie. Similarly, the history never lies. If you don't learn from history, it's going to repeat. If you want to heal others, because this is the time to heal, we have to first acknowledge the pain. Once we acknowledge the pain, then we can have a solution. If there is no acknowledgement of pain, there is no solution. So we have not acknowledged the pains yet. I have not seen a single candidate in American Congress yet who has acknowledged the pain. And even though I'm not a very Democrat supporter, but I appreciated Gavin Newsom actually acknowledging the pain of the Native Americans. It's a good beginning. At least somewhere the beginning has been made. See, in the Hindu culture, we are very grateful from where we receive our food from, that land. And we are very grateful to this America, this country, because we are eating food from this land. Very grateful. Now it's our duty to tell them the truth. Because if you tell me, you feed me, you have made me thankful, even though I'm working myself and producing everything. But now I'm grateful. So my duty is to tell you the truth. That first say sorry and apologize, and let's move on. Otherwise, there's not going to be healing. And the way the karma cycle works, and that is the biggest problem in this world, because we have learned to be externally confident in front of a mirror, and the speech writers give us words that we really impress people, but we don't feel them in our heart, we don't connect to them. So we are creating an artificial society, and that artificial society is happy with a burger or a barbecue or a coffee or a whiskey or a tequila. So these are not the platforms for happiness. The real conflict resolution happens when there is someone forceful, some politician forceful comes and says, let's walk here, we'll create the maximum jobs, but I don't want fighting. If you fight, then there is a danda. The law is going to take care of it. When that happens, then there'll be conflict resolution. Otherwise, not good conflict resolution. Sometimes the Republicans will appoint more judges. Sometimes the Democrats will appoint more judges. The Democrat judge will pass a pro-Democrat resolution, and a pro-Republican pass pro-Republican. It's never going to end. So if we continue with the Abrahamism cult mindset, there'll be no peace in the world. But if we follow the Dharmic viewpoint, there'll be peace.
That's a very, very strong and positive message that at the end of the day, we have to work for humanity. That's
Exactly.
what life is all about. Humanism is the way forward. Pray to whatever you want. And that's where it brings me to other element of our own. Most of the Indian politicians and most of the Indian get-togethers, we proudly say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And we say that the whole world is a family. To apply the family as because we work with a lot of families. And we know that families are a den of fights. Sibling rivalry is not an easy word. Brothers and sisters kill each other for throne, for money, for assets. It happens all the time. So as a result of which, I have my thought process is that the actual translation of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not that the world is a family. It's something which Prime Minister Modi ji said when he inaugurated the International Solar Alliance in Delhi. When he said, he gave the modern definition of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There is one nature, one sun, one earth, one grid. That's what is important. That is the message of Sanatan that we need to reach out to people. Not to convince them against their will, but at least bring it to their notice. That you talked about earth resources, Mother Earth resources. Christians pray before food. The Orthodox people did. We see that. Everybody, every faith pays its gratitude for the food that is served on the table or wherever. If we have that sense of gratitude, if we adopt those practices that we are utilizing, using Mother Earth's resources, and we have to protect, the question of climate change will automatically get addressed. Respect. And the other part which I want your thought on it is that, we need to change the language of communication as well. We often talk about tolerance of others. I must be tolerant with Aditya Satsangi or anybody else. Instead, my thought process is that if we use the words respect and acceptance, that will change the mindset of people. These two words have the ability to change the minds. Tolerance is on a no-choice basis. Acceptance and respect is full of dignity, that I respect you for who you are, what you are, as you are. That's what our greetings of Namaste is all about, right? Your thoughts on that?
See, the word tolerance again a product of the church, because again the same thing. If you see gold, glory, and God, it's a papal bull. Similarly, tolerance is also their word, that I tolerate you till I convert you. That's what it is all about. So there will be no tolerance between the three Abrahamism cults, neither Islamism or Christianism or Judaism. There will be no tolerance between them. And they are totally not tolerant towards Hindus or any brown faith. Like they always see Africans as inferiors. Nowadays they've started changing, and I give credit to those who are changing. And I thanks to them if they're watching. But by design they are not. That's why there's a black church separate, white church separate, Hispanic church separate, Japanese church separate, Korean church separate, all are separate.
Yes.
We see them in the US every day.
Yeah.
And the Mormons are separate also. They're also a separate lot. So the point is, but in the case of Sanatan Dharma, there is no such concept of tolerance. There is a titikshva. There is a matra sparshas kante sitosh sukhadat agama paina tams diksha bharata. The tolerance is only for the nature. Like for example, it is a little chilly here. I'm wearing a jacket. It's not a leather jacket, by the way. It's a fox leather. But I'm wearing a jacket. And if it is hot weather, then I'm going to wear less clothes so that I'm lighter. So in Sanatan Dharma, in the Vedic culture, the tolerance is only for the elements, not for the humans. So it's a tolerance is a the word titikshva means tolerating the nature, the exigencies of nature. But in the Brahmism cults, the tolerance is against human beings till you convert them. So then the Muslim is also trying the same thing, that you should surrender to the true God. They take their name, that is our true God.
Right.
Jews are saying the same thing. Jews have even more extreme segment, that you have to. There are within the Jews also there's an Israeli Jews and non-Israeli Jews. Israeli Jews are superior. Non-Israeli Jews are not superior. And the Jewish soul is special. So all these things are there, and I don't want to speak more on that because people read my book very clearly.
I would urge, because you have done something very fascinating in the book, is that you have highlighted, you have put it in bold prints on things which people catches attention. So I would urge people to read the book. If you even if you don't want to read the whole book, read the highlighted portions, because they are themselves eye openers in more ways than one. So for example, I'm reading on page 119, the account on Wikipedia is partially correct. More research needs to be done on the appearance of the word Labrador. Tell me more about that.
The Labrador, it's a
It's a dog variety, we know that.
it has nothing to do with dog.
Yes, no.
It has nothing to do with dog. It's the biggest human rights violations on human beings, on the where the graves can be stored. That's Labrador, and that happened with the natives. So that's why I kept it open over there. More research needs to be done because it's a public information on the Wikipedia and other places. So our open news sources have given us truth, and we just take it by the way, like the German Shepherd. People do not know the origins of the German Shepherd, and people do not know the origins of the word shepherd. Why the shepherd is needed? Shepherd is needed for sheep, not for humans. Humans are not sheep. But the preaching is you are the sheep and you need a shepherd. That's a totally bad analogy, because you are comparing animals to man. Again, goes back to Darwinian thought that the man came from monkeys. All of us know our monkeys. So all these words that we use unconsciously, we have to start thinking about them again and again and again. Just like I mentioned the word tolerance, the same is the word with the God, the controller. That is not the way in which the Vedic culture looks at things. In the Vedic culture, Bhagwan is a person who is a loving caretaker. You don't have to be fearful of God. They tell you have to be wrathful, be fear of the wrath of God. And in the name of God, they are wrathful to people. What they did to children, what they did to women, what they did to other men who did not follow the church, including the scientists like Galileo. What happened to him? Saint Peter's, what happened to him?
Right.
He's not a martyr. He was a martyr.
Right.
So they've killed their own people more than others. Others they've killed much more than them, but they've killed their own people also. So the point is, we have to go back to the basic. The purpose of writing this book is just to show a mirror. That don't preach to me about human rights. Don't preach to me about democracy. Don't preach to me any of those things which you stand for. For you, it may be a surprise, it's a big thing, but for me, those are given things. India still has more freedom than USA in many aspects today. Than USA, even Mexico has more freedom than USA, because in the USA, in the name of church, prostitution is illegal, and whereas the maximum pedophilia cases have come from the church, maximum child pedophilia, uh, trafficking has come from the church, and all of them have been subdued. Now, which sane man or woman will send their children to the church?
That's a very powerful statement to make, because you are, first of all, you are calling all the three Abrahamic faiths as cult, which is itself, people will raise in revolt against you. That's the important part. But important thing here also is the human mind. I often remember the nice, famous statement of Professor Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes' Games of Shadows, the movie. And he says the human mind is so bedeviled with conflicts. All that matters is whether you are supplying bandages or bullets. It's in the movie. I also noticed that many movies have captured the essence of Veda. In the you talked about law, dand, and in Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul tells Bruce Wayne that the criminals thrive on the compassion of the society, and these are very powerful statements. So I will come to one more particular
I'll
thing.
just
Yeah,
add point to that.
yeah,
The definition of a cult is one way in, no way out. So if that is the definition is considered, then exactly it describes the reality. Because you can go in, but you cannot come out. So that's where I mentioned them cult, because they literally like that. In Sanatan Dharma, today you don't like Shiva, okay, you worship Ganesh. There are a
yeah,
lot of options within Sanatan Dharma.
that's right. And all under the same roof in the
All under the
temple,
same roof.
and no God comes to kill you.
That's why Sanatan Dharma cannot be called a cult by definition.
Yeah, some people are asking the name of the book. The book is Aditya Satsangi's book, Gold, Glory, and God. So,
Search Pathology on Amazon, you'll see all my 9
just
books.
go to his website. But in the remaining 5 minutes that we have,
Yeah.
I wanted to also dwell upon the narrow-mindedness you have talked about, the conflict, the domination part of it. Why this is what is worrisome, that we all seek peace, we all talk about peace, we all talk about human welfare, we talk about this, but look what is happening in Ukraine. The whole country has been devastated. I mean, there is no way one can justify the destruction of property, assets, and life, refugee status. There's no way one can justify. I'm tempted to tell Mr. Putin, well, you made your point, stop now. There is a thing like you have to stop now. Come on. There is a point. Supplying weapons to Ukrainians to fight is only part of the process, but nobody is addressing the germane cause as to why it is happening. So this is your thoughts on that current part of it, where today Secretary Blinken and the Defense Secretary would be going there to Kiev to talk to Mr. Zelensky. The part is that people are paying lip service, or are we really trying to find a solution?
See, the problem of, Professor John Mearsheimer has already quoted it, and Victor Davis Hansen has also quoted it. This is the classical American NATO problem created. Russian red lines were drawn when the NATO expansion took place. Now, the solution is not in arming the Ukraine. I'm
Right.
very clear on that, because Russian forces have, as already said it, they don't want to occupy.
Yeah.
They want to conduct a military operation. So the entire Western media circus, CNN, Fox News, both included, that circus is meant to promote a CIA viewpoint of the war, so that the people follow the CIA viewpoint, and the money flows in, and the business arms industry thrives, because they apparently had no food to eat in last 4 years when Trump was ruling the planet, America. So therefore, to get their beer and tacos in line, so this war was needed in Biden's time. And Biden, we all know, was shaking hands with the air few days back, because he did not realize where he's shaking hands with. So that's why when the Raja is weak, then the fools thrive. Exactly what is happening right now in this war.
That's a very strong indictment. Listening to you today, one would feel that you are telling the truth, but you hate America. But I think you love America. That's why you are
I love
saying.
America more because I'm telling the truth. I'm not telling this to India. I'm telling to Americans.
Anyway, hey, listen, we are coming to the end of the show, and I wanted to urge all the viewers, thank you for joining today. Jaipur Dialogue USA is trying to build a narrative and trying to do things that people don't know about it. It's not about hurting anybody's sentiment. It's not about questioning anybody's authority. But as freedom of speech, we need to make that inquiry, because freedom of speech to make an inquiry makes things happen. It's only, I remember when we came here first time in Disney in California, Los Angeles, I saw Walt Disney's coat standing for a particular item that we wanted to see. If you want to see the world with a new set of eyes, new looks, look at it from the eyes of a child. Look, where is Disney today? They're talking about sexual genders and all that. What has happened to the world around us? A lot of things are happening. We need to address that. Nobody will tell you what to do. You got to do what you got to do. Is a man has got to do. And today's language, man has got to do What he got to do is an old saying, but women will take objection to that, right? In the language. So we have a lot of things are changing in terms of grammatical things or things like that. But we have to always remember truth is one. Truth, trust, and transparency cannot be allowed to suffer. And that's what technology enables us today. Today, sitting here in New York or Aditya ji in San Diego, we can check the street temperature in Mongolia. Technology is available to us. We know now. So whether you want to spread the word of Sanatan or learn to ask, make an inquiry, why? If so, that's what is important. And to all of us, all the viewers today, I would urge you to read this book, Gold, Glory, and God, because I have read several of his books, Aditya's books, but this was deep. This was strong. This is tough. That's why this conversation, I feel, was a tough one. It is a tough conversation to have because the truth always hurts. That's why in Sanatan or Sanskrit, they say Satyam Uvach, Priyam Uvach. Say truth nicely. That's the reason for that. And I would urge all of you viewers today, read read some more. I will recommend you a few things to know is those who want to build India, read a book, not because of anything else, but to know how it happened. Startup Nation, the story of Israel, the bourgeois and the samurai, Sri Aurobindo's article. It's a brilliant eye opener. And the Unlimited War, the 1919 book, which discloses the Chinese intent. Unlimited War is unlimited. And all of it exists in Bhagavad Gita. Kautilya's Arthashastra is there in our texts. Thank you very much.
Thank
For
you.
all of you, for watching today. Like, subscribe, support us. We are bringing you a message which you will not hear any other program. Thank you. Satyamev Jayate. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, all the viewers.